All right, welcome everyone. This is Tarot Unicorns and Coffee Full Moon in Virgo celebration. This is March 2020, and I am Valerie Lewis and co-host Robin Poole. I am the moon lover, and Robin Poole is the astrologer here to give us vast knowledge on everything that's going on up in the heavens. So the way these amazing celebration events work is we kind of hand it off back and forth between the both of us. I am going to start focusing more on just the moon energies and what the moon is doing. And Robin is going to give us the full spectrum, including the moon and also other things that are going on up in the heavens astrologically, which are also affecting the moon's energy. So I'm letting her expertise shine in that area while I go back to focusing more on the moon. With that being said, so I present first on what I found about moon energies, then I turn it over to Robin to present. And then for today, when we get into the ritual section, after we present the energies and what's going on and how it can affect you, we like to present you with rituals. Rituals, I put them in air quotes because it's just activities or anything that you can do in ritual form, usually in ritual form, that will help you bring these energies in so that you can make personal use of these energies in your life in a way that resonates with you. Today, however, Robin has prepared a ritual, and I have prepared something a little bit less intensive. It's just a list of activities that you might enjoy. I made mine brief because I'm adding back in a meditation. So towards the end, we will end by going into the meditation that will hopefully help us pull in this full moon in Virgo energy. So that's what's going on today. KO, there's not a worksheet. You know what? The worksheets that I created, full moon and new moon, are worksheets that you can use for every full moon and every new moon. So once Robin gets into her presentation, we'll go grab the link for that and post it back in the chat so that you can download the one for the full moon. Cool, no worries, Kay. I'm glad you asked because I forgot to keep posting those. So I will go grab the link for that in just a moment. Okay, I think I've done all of the introductions and laid everything out. So we're going to just take a moment. We're not going to do a very long grounding meditation here in the beginning, but I am going to ask you to take just a moment, bring your attention on all your energy here into the present moment. Take a couple of deep breaths and center yourself and ground yourself in whatever way feels good for you. One more deep breath with the intention that we are all going to come together, celebrate these energies, and find ways that we can use this information to enhance our spiritual journey. All right. Let me get my screen up. We'll get right into the presentation. Let's see. Oh my, sorry. Present. Okay, can everybody see that? Awesome. So full moon in Virgo, I'm calling this full moon getting your shit together. Yay. I don't know about y'all, but I can use a little bit of this energy. So full moon energy, just looking at the full moon all by itself, not concerned with what sign it's in. If you're just following the full moon, what does the full moon energy call or ask you to do? It's all about letting go. So each full moon, you've gone through the full phase and now you're at the full moon. What happens next is that full moon starts to wane away and to go away. During that waning period where it's decreasing in size and decreasing in brightness, that's also a clue for us that we need to let go. We need to let go of whatever is not serving us. So each full moon is the chance for us to evaluate the past lunar cycle, asking ourselves what worked and what didn't, deciding what we want to repeat with this upcoming cycle and what we want to let go of. We can use the moon's zodiac placement to help us focus our intention in specific areas of our life. So we know we want to let go because it's the full moon. Now we can take that full moon and say, okay, which sign, what zodiac sign is it in the sky? That can help me determine what it is I want to let go of. So we use the moon zodiac placement to help us focus and let us focus on specific areas and what we might want to let go of during those full moons. So as you know, this full moon on the 18th, not today, we do these events a little bit prior to the moon, the full moon or the new moon. This one is going to be in the zodiac sign of Virgo. So let's talk a little bit about Virgo energy. So Virgo is a mutable sign, making it adaptable and flexible. It's also an earth sign, making it grounded and practical. Virgo's ruling planet is Mercury, which lends its energy to Virgo, making Virgoian energies analytical and logical. That sentence sounded kind of confusing, but it made sense in my head. Anyway, Virgo's ruling planet is Mercury. You know, Mercury is about logic. Mercury is also about communication. And so Mercury also lends its energies to our moon, making this time a time when we can pull in more analytical, logical, and communication skills to focus on during this particular full moon. Virgo also rules the 6th house of health and healing, among other things. I pulled out health and healing because Virgo is most often associated with healing power. Many people born under this sign, meaning if it's your sun sign, if you identify as being a Virgo, or if you have significant Virgo placements, such as your ascending sign or your moon sign are in Virgo. Many people with this sign of Virgo, which has a significant part in their chart, are also known as healers. You'll see a lot of Virgos in our metaphysical world who have identified as energy workers or spiritual healers. Look, Robin's got Virgo in her chart. I do too. I have Virgo ascending. All right. So what else with this Virgo energy? Why is Virgo energy so prime for helping us get our shit together? If your life took a bit of a bumpy ride the first few months of 2020, which there's a lot of talk in the spiritual community that I don't know why we're designating it to the first few months. I think somehow we all thought that 2022 on January 1st was going to hail in this beautiful new, like we've been dealing with shit for a couple of years now, is what I'm saying. So it's not a far stretch to realize that January, March, and April were also a bit a bit bumpy for us as we start this new year. So, but this is the perfect time this month as we move into March to get our shit together. Why? Why would this be the perfect time? Because we got Virgo backing us up. Virgo can help us get grounded, get organized, put our lives back in order. It can also help us heal aspects of ourselves so that we can move forward unhindered. So let's put this all together. We have the full moon. What do we need to let go of in order to help us get our shit together, which is Virgo energy? We want to let go of everything that is not a match to Virgo energy. Everything that is not a match to the positive aspects of Virgo energy would behoove us to make a concerted effort to make this the full moon that we let go of specifically those things, because we have the energies in the sky helping us to release those. So we want to release what's not a match to it, and we want to call in more Virgo energy so that it can dominate our energies during this full moon, push out anything that's not a match. So you can kind of come at it from two angles. What do I want to let go of? How can I pull this in so that it dominates, and also by law of opposites pushes out whatever is not a match to it. So what is not a match to Virgo energy that we can let go of? We talked about how Virgo is very practical and very organized. It's a planning sign. So we can let go of procrastination. We can let go of failing to plan. We can let go of disorganization. We can let go of overthinking. Sometimes the analytical Virgo mind tends to go into detriment when they overanalyze. So let go of overthinking. Remember, we talked about Virgo was a mutable sign, so we want to let go of inflexibility and let go of any ungrounded energy. Now is the time to spend time grounding ourselves, connecting to the physical, making practical physical moves here in the physical world that grounds the things that we are trying to manifest and brings them into the physical. So we have other signs that will help us when we're using our imagination or when we're dreaming or when we're thinking about things. But this sign is going to help us bring those thoughts and those big dreams into the physical. So if we're still off in la la dreamland, now is not the time for that. We want to let go of those ungrounded energies and focus on being grounded and bringing things into physical manifestation for us. And that is my last slide as far as what we can do to line ourselves up with this full moon and also with Virgo energies. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm sympathetic, Jay. I like La La Land too. I did just have a conversation with my spirit guides, and one thing they told me is they told me not to denigrate La La Land as less important than the physical world, but just to make sure that I had a good enjoyment of both in my life. That there's this tendency to be like, oh, La La Land, they were like, you know, people say, oh, it's like fantasy and then it's the real world, but why do you think that your fantasies aren't real? It's like they exist in your mind. You're having a good time with those fantasies. You just need to not mistake it for the physical world. So, but I'm with you on the La La Land. Part of the reason I struggle with La La Land and accepting it is I have 3 planets in Virgo, including my Sun and my Mercury and my Mars. And the practical side of Virgo can be very like, well, that's not real. That's not actually happening. So we all want to be equal opportunity. But Valerie, that was great. I think what you said was exactly right about getting Virgo together. And I will mention that even though people with lots of Virgo placements are known as healers and have a real tendency to want to help others, Virgo can also tend to a lot of self-criticism and be very like, Virgo is very good at like identifying problems, but then you can get really good at identifying your own problems. And I have found it's really helpful to sick my Virgo energies on a solution to the problem and not continually harping on what the problem actually is. I'm like, I got it. You have successfully identified that this is a challenge in my life. Now, what is our plan for what we're going to do about this? So that's my tip for those of you who may have Virgo energies that tend to be self-critical or picky or downers. I see Elizabeth saying she doesn't have any planets in Virgo. So Virgo is in your chart, even if you don't have any planets in Virgo. You still have Virgo energies in some house of your chart. And you can also take a look at Mercury, which is the ruler of Virgo, and figure out where your Mercury is. And that will tell you how these sort of healing, problem solving, practical, grounded Virgo energies are showing up in your life. Okay. All right. So I think I'm going to start my presentation. Just as a reminder, I occasionally freeze. We have nice weather today, so finger crossed my internet will hold up. But don't be shy if I freeze. Just verbally interject and let me know, and I'll back up to wherever I was when you lost me. And thank you guys for coming today. I will mention that we often associate earth signs with greens and browns, but the traditional planetary magic colors for Virgo are actually purple and white. So if you're doing planetary magic with Virgo, that's the colors. Obviously you can see I decided to go with that. Okay, and we have a couple cool things going on. Not only do we have a full moon, which is always cool in and of itself, but we also have the spring equinox coming up on March 20th. That's this weekend, and it's just a couple of days after the full moon. So the presentation I put together today is kind of a mix of the Virgo aspects, but also the power of the equinox, because I think the equinox is a super cool time of year. For myself, it's actually the time when we take down our winter holiday decorations. So my husband and I are taking down the tree this weekend because we leave it up until the equinox. So yeah, okay. So we're going to talk more about the equinox in just a moment, but I wanted to mention that the equinox is the time when we officially switch from winter to spring. So starting on March 20th, it will be spring. And Virgo, as Valerie said, is a lot about practical problem solving and figuring out challenges in the real world and making things happen. And my husband and I take regular walks down to the beach, and there's somebody who has a beautiful little garden that we always pass. And we found these gorgeous little crocuses that were pushing their way out of the ground. And it occurred to me that these little bulbs, I mean, they're like 2 inches high, but it was, raining and cold and wet. And there they were, just starting to bloom. Crocuses are among the first flowers of the spring, late winter, early spring. That this little bulb, which has been lying dormant in the ground for literally like 10 months, has had a lot of problems to solve on its way to blooming, right? It's got to keep itself alive for 10 months with no photosynthesis. It's got to push its way out of the cold ground. Then when it comes out, it's late winter. So it's not like gorgeous, sunny, warm weather. It's cold, it's rainy, there's wind. And crocuses actually have the ability to close themselves up on gray days and then open to protect the flower, and then open themselves up on sunny days to get more ability to be pollinated by the insects. And so I thought that we could maybe take some inspiration from the crocus, which manages to bloom in tough weather after 10 months of dormancy, pushing through the ground, figuring out what the right timing is. And that's really the energy that we can think of ourselves as channeling here, because I titled this presentation, Celebrate the Turning of Your Season. And this fits with what Valerie was talking about, the sense of like, it's been challenging, but we can still blossom, even if the weather's not great, even if it feels rainy and cold outside with everything that's going on. And I want to honor the challenges of the people in the Ukraine and in Russia, and all of our challenges as we watch this drama unfolding. That it has been hard, but man, Virgo is the energy you need to get through things that are hard, because that energy is so good for figuring out how to move forward. So that's what we're going to work on. This is both a tropical and a sidereal Virgo. Tropical is the normal Western zodiac that we all think of. It turns out that that's the alignment of the zodiac in the sky 2,000 years ago when Western astrology was written down. But because there's a wobble in the Earth's orbit, we lose 1 degree every 72 years. So the actual zodiac in the sky is now 24 degrees behind that, and that's called the sidereal zodiac. But in this case, because our full moon is at the end of Virgo, and Virgo is 30 degrees, like all the signs, even when we subtract 24 degrees, we're still in Virgo. So it's a double dose of Virgo energy, which I think is great because it's really what we need here. So the equinox, if you don't know, is a time when it comes from the Latin equinocte, which is like equal nights. And it's a time when the length of day and the length of night are exactly equal. It's also a time when the sun is directly overhead the equator. The Earth and the sun are exactly lined up. Normally the Earth is at a little bit of an angle to the sun, which is why we have seasons. Thank God for that. Seasons are vital to our life on Earth. But the equinox is the time when the Earth and the sun line up. And as it signals the beginning of spring, it was hugely important for ancient societies, because it basically said it's time to start planting. If you want to eat this year, if you want to have food to sustain you through the next winter, it's time to get out there and plow up the ground and put in your seeds. And it was a time of great celebration. And there are a lot of really traditional celebrations that involve like bonfires to welcome back the god of the sun and the energy of light. The pyramids in Egypt are exactly aligned on the east-west axis. And so at the equinox, the rising sun illuminates the full side of the pyramid. And you may not know this, but the top of the pyramid used to be covered with gold. So when the rising sun illuminated the top of the gold pyramid, it was like a flash that was visible for miles all around. This is a picture I found from Chichen Itza off this website called Art for Elements. And this is a pyramid built by the Mayans in Central America. And one of the things that's really cool is that it's also aligned on the east-west axis. And in the spring equinox, the sun directly hits the edge of the pyramid. And what happens is it casts a shadow. As you can see, the edge of the pyramid here is exactly aligned. And it casts this bumpy shadow along the steps that go up the pyramid. And as the sun rises, the shadow seems to move upwards. And this represented the serpent god coming up out of the earth to give life and create the growing season. So I just think it's really cool that literally for, probably something like 10,000 years, there's monuments built in Europe in the Stone Age that are all aligned with the equinox. People have been celebrating this time of year as a time of hope, a time of growth, a time, as Valerie said, to get your butt in gear and start doing things and shake off the winter blues and make plans and take action to create the beautiful season for yourself for the coming year. So that's kind of where we are today. Are there any questions in the chat before I move to the astrology of this particular moon?
No, I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay, great. All right, so this is the picture of our full moon. We're going to get more into the details of the astrology in just a moment. You can see we've got our tropical moon here at 27 degrees Virgo, and if we subtract 4 degrees, we're up to 3 degrees set Virgo here. So I'd like everybody to take a moment, and you can close your eyes if you want, tune into your inner self, maybe put your hand on your heart. Take a deep breath and just ask yourself, what challenge would I really like to solve or improve right now? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your career. Maybe it's a relationship with somebody on the outside, or maybe your relationship with your inner self. That's what I'm working on. I'm really working on loving and appreciating my inner self more. What's the first thing that comes to mind? And if you'd like to make a public proclamation of your plan to change, you can go ahead and stick that in the chat. What is top of mind for you? Or what is your inner self saying, I really want to change this? If you don't want to write it in the chat, maybe you could just write it down on a piece of paper. Ask yourself to remember it. And then the next question to ask is, what is holding me back from this? We're going to talk more about this when it comes to the ritual, but I want to start thinking, is part of me afraid? Is part of me like angry? Do I have old emotions? Do I have old stories that say I tried this and failed, or I can't do it? What's the biggest obstacle to this change that you want to make? You can type that in the chat or write that down for yourself. And just give yourself a little extra love here for being honest. Thank you, inner me, for telling me honestly about your fears and worries or anger or obstacles or whatever that is. Because we really want to harness this Virgo energy to make progress and help ourselves. So we need to know what those inner obstacles are. Now, if we blow this up a little bit bigger, back to the astrology here.
You got a lot of comments going on in chat, Robin. Do you want to hear them now or later?
I think I'd like to hear them later when we get to the ritual part. But thank you guys for commenting in chat. It means a lot to me that you're willing to participate. So if we blow this up here, we can see that actually these are both in Virgo, but they're in two different parts of the sign. Our tropical placement here on the left is in the part of Virgo that's actually ruled by Venus and dedicated to Taurus. So that's an energy that's going to help us create things that are cozy and comfortable and secure, and to enjoy the physical world for ourselves, enjoy the environment. And it's in the decan of Saturn, which is a part of the sign of Virgo that's ruled by Saturn, which means we have great energy right now for letting go. So not only is the full moon in general a good time to let go, this is a full moon in the decan of Saturn, which means it's really about letting go. And then our sidereal placement here on the right is in the decan that's actually associated with Virgo itself. It's ruled by Mercury. Virgo, and it's in the decan of Mercury itself. So we've got double Mercury here, which means this is a great time for communication and analysis and understanding. Okay, but there's a little bit of a wrinkle to Mercury in this particular moon, and that is that this particular Mercury now down here is actually in the sign of Pisces. And Pisces Mercury is a very special Mercury. It's not the like hyper-logical, analytical, detail-oriented, communications-driven version of Mercury. And if there's anybody here who has Mercury in Pisces, you probably know what I'm talking about. Because Mercury in Pisces is in a special condition where it's like the Mercury of the trickster magician. It's like the coyote Mercury. It's the Mercury that's coming up with insights that don't 100% make sense, because the Pisces energy makes this like the cosmically connected Mercury. So this is an amazing time to use these Mercury energies to connect with like the deep inner part of yourself, or to come up with like magical thinking or fantastic solutions, or something really creative and out of the box. This is a cool, in my opinion, a cool alchemical mix of Virgo's analytical abilities and desire to heal, and then Mercury's as the magician, the ability to not come up with like a totally normal, boring, well, I went to the drugstore and purchased this medication type of solution. This is much more of a, I did this ritual, I did some visualization, I decided to fantasize about my future life and figure out how I can actually get there now, like all that kind of stuff. It's a super cool Mercury in Virgo. So when we're thinking about the challenges and what's holding you back, don't just be thinking about a practical solution. Now, I totally support you with practical solutions, but think about something a little bit magical, because we can use these energies to step out of our practical Virgo box here. So the inner world, right? This is the tropical part. Think through a practical, but also magical solution to your challenge. Now, when I say magical, I don't mean that it has to be literally magic. You don't have to get out your wand. You don't have to do any rituals if you don't want to. You don't have to use glitter, although I support the use of glitter at all times. It's more of like, what's kind of like a way to do this that harnesses energies that maybe I don't normally work with. So we're thinking of big tent magic here. Because once you do that, you can then tap into this Taurus thing and the Saturn thing. And we're going to banish whatever is keeping you uncomfortable. Those practical blocks that you're like, well, I wish I had more income, but I don't feel comfortable putting myself out in the world. Well, I wish I had better relationships, but I don't feel comfortable honestly saying how other people make me feel. Like whatever that is that's keeping you stuck, we're going to come up with some magical ways to get rid of that. That's part of this ritual. So we want to be thinking about our inner world, like what's going on with us, and our outer world, what are we getting rid of? And then looking for out of the box solutions. We have a Pluto Trine. That means that Pluto's like 120 degrees roughly from our planet here, our moon. And Pluto Trines are great for exercising deep, powerful magic. Pluto's a planet of powerful transformation. So that's where we're headed here. So I did my usual analysis of the sort of elemental energies. And what we can see from this analysis here is that we have a lot of water planets in the sky. This isn't just the moon. And we also have a good number of planets in earth signs. And then also we have a few up in here in air signs, plus our moon is in an earth sign. So this is actually a pretty balanced time elementally. But because we have a lot of water, that means we're on the feeling side of things, right? So our air water overlap is a time to get inspired about the emotional experience you want to create on this planet. And this is really important because let's say you're thinking about something like very practical, like I want to create more income. It's quite possible that if you really want to create more income, but yet it's not happening, which might be that you're not taking action, or you are taking action, but they don't seem to work, or you're taking actions, but you're getting overwhelmed, that you might be thinking too practically, too concretely about that. Because you're not thinking, well, how would I enjoy creating more income? What would make me excited to create more income? You know, creating more income may be challenging because you might have to step out of a comfort zone or try something new or change your process. What's going to help me be less afraid to create more income? Take advantage of all of the planets we have here in Pisces to really connect with your inner self and your higher self and your spiritual connection or your divine connection. And think, how can I use my emotions as a way to help myself make this transformation? The air planets here, we have lots of planets in Aquarius. The air planets are going to help us actually make that analysis, figure some things out to make progress. But focus on creating the emotion that you want to create around this change. And then once we've done that, we can now go down into the water earth component, which is practical feeling, to find an emotionally satisfying solution. Now, this is really important because what we're not looking for here is the emotionally satisfying solution that has emotionally satisfied others, right? Or the emotionally satisfying solution that keeps you in your comfort zone with what other people are going to, expect, or like what society expects. You got to really get inside to that deep self and think, what is going to be an emotionally satisfying solution to me? Because I can tell you that there are tons of trainings out there and books you can read and many successful people who are happy to share what worked for them. And I think that's all valuable. right? It's good inspiration. But what we really have to do is go inside of ourselves and say, okay, now I've done some research. I have ideas for how to build income. You know, I've watched trainings from 3 successful people who have 3 different ways. What is the solution that's really going to work for me? What's going to be something that I'm excited to implement or doesn't trigger me? Or how can I move through my triggers so that I'm not triggered by this thing that really looks like it would work? So leverage the feeling part of things to create a pathway to the solution that will work for you. And that's part of the magic that we're working with Mercury and Pisces, is we're not just using the analytical side of Mercury. We're using the intuitive side and the emotionally sensitive side to connect with what is deeply powerful for us. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions about this or want to ask about what we've analysis I did?
Yes, let me see. Let me pull this up. Elizabeth, I'm going to let you unmute and ask that question so that it makes sense.
Just making a comment when you were going over the chart that it seems to be kind of even air, earth, and water. And I asked, is that why I'm so discombobulated with my fire sign? Is like, what is happening?
So the answer is that could totally be. It could totally be that if you are strong in fire and not in air, earth, and water, that part of you is heading in a different direction. But it also could well be due to this Mercury in Pisces. If you're somebody who has a lot of sort of analytical communication energy, Mercury in Pisces can feel very wobbly. It can feel like things don't make sense or weird stuff is happening, or like my normal analytical abilities are not online. I can't figure stuff out. So that could be it. And it could also be, I don't remember what your Aquarius energy is in your chart, Elizabeth, but it could also be that this big group of Aquarius planets here at the bottom, this is quite a conjunction of Aquarius stuff. And we're actually going to talk about this in our ritual. But this is very strong energy for like letting go of old stuff and making progress. And there may be parts inside of you that are like, I don't want to let go of my old ways of doing things. I'm not ready to make progress. I've never been this new way that we're talking about being. So there may be some parts of you that are stirred up by all the sort of astrological pressure to move forward. Personally, I am having a Saturn trine, which means that this particular Saturn at 20 degrees Aquarius is exactly 120 degrees from my Saturn, which is in 20 degrees Gemini. So I've had a ton of stuff come up, which is all ready to let go. So you might be experiencing some sort of transit that's causing that. All right. Thank you for that question, though. Any other questions?
Yes, Tara, you want to unmute and ask?
Hi, yes, hi. I'm Virgo with ascendant of the Libra, but most of my houses are Virgo. I'm really an earth sign. Does that mean that this is going to affect me more?
Yes, probably. That this full moon is affecting you strongly because it's going to be highlighting all of your Virgo energies, and it will probably bring out the positive aspect of your Virgo energies, like your problem solving ability and your ability to identify what needs to be healed. But if part of you is manifesting any of the challenging aspects of Virgo, like perfectionism or self-criticism or getting kind of obsessed with problems, then you might also find that you are, that's also triggered. And you may have to work to get your Virgo energy on a more positive plane, which actually is something you could use this ritual.
I'm actually feeling the positive. You're like right on with the spirituality and the intuition. I've been feeling that. So that's why I'm asking. Thank you.
That's awesome. Did you say that you were a Libra ascendant?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're a Libra ascendant here, that means that the Libra energy is your first house, which means that Virgo is in your 12th house. So that means that in general, your Virgo energy is very internally focused, because the 12th house is your inner world. So there should be a lot that combined with Mercury and Pisces is probably really amping up the sort of mystical juice.
Okay. Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Nope, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments.
So I would love it now, Valerie, if you would like to just quickly read to me some of the things that people said they wanted to work on. And thank you guys for anybody who put something in the chat and took a public stand on what it is that you're trying to work on.
All right, we've got following my drive,
Ooh.
laziness, procrastinating, which they linked to fear of change, fear just in general, someone's in their head too much, fear of letting go, and then also fear of feeling worthless.
Ooh.
Because productivity has declined in a pandemic, and also feeling, let's see if I can paraphrase this, feeling some type of way, maybe feeling a little bit helpless or depressed about the global situations.
Yeah.
And just finally saying, wanting to feel worthy for being here.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you guys. I feel really honored by your honesty. And those are all things that, you know, I think a lot of people are working on. So for anybody who didn't put something in, you can see that there's people here working on all kinds of things and around the globe. So let's just take a moment. We'll send some positive, encouraging, loving, warm energy to ourselves for being honest about obstacles, and to people around the world who are struggling with all the same things that we are struggling. Double pat on the head for ourselves for sharing and for sending positive energy to everybody. You can give yourself a big hug and say, you are my best friend, self. Thank you for being my trusty and constant companion on this planet. We all need extra love and comfort at this time, I think. Okay, great. Well, that was a great list, you guys. And I'm really encouraged that you're working on things and you have an idea of how you want to improve. You can see that there is a lot of fear of change, and also recognizing challenging circumstances, the pandemic and the global situation. So I did what I call a sweet spot analysis to help us harness this practical Virgo, and then the magic of being having Mercury in Pisces. Mercury is Virgo's ruler. That's why we're talking about Mercury, because it rules the sign of Virgo. To help us find the sweet spot of how to actually move forward. Now that we've identified our obstacles, we know we're afraid, we know we feel depressed, we know we're not feeling worthy because we don't produce as much. That's been a huge issue for me. That's one of the things Spirit really wants me to let go of, is this idea that production equals worthiness. Anyway, so I did my 2-axis analysis, and on our vertical axis here, we have practicality, low practicality or high practicality. And on our horizontal axis, we have magic, low magic and high magic. So it's easy to get stuck in the low magic state, which I labeled passive acceptance. This is low practicality, low magic. It's just the way it is. I feel really discouraged. I don't have any magical ability to change things. I don't have any practical ability to change things. Ukraine is thousands of miles away and it's ruled by people who aren't even listening to me. We're just stuck. And a lot of times we find ourselves, especially at the beginning of things, in this spot. Low practicality, low magic, just feeling like you have to accept it. There's nothing you can do. And you'll hear people say that. What are you going to do? Well, turns out there's all kinds of stuff you can do, which we're going to talk about today. Now, maybe if you've moved through passive acceptance, you might find yourself thinking about what I call the high magic, but low practicality spot of fantastical thinking number 2. Number 2. So this is the fantasizing about how if you had infinite ability, what you would do about the Ukraine or your job, or to make yourself feel less afraid, or to be less in your head. Well, I just wish I had a magic wand and I could do such and such and change this and that. And I think this is a step up from passive acceptance, because at least you're now thinking about how things can be different. But it's often not terribly practical. We can't think of any actual steps that we really want to take. So if you find yourself in stage 1 or stage 2, you can go ahead and put a number 1 or number 2 in the chat if you found yourself in this spot. I've definitely found myself in the fantastical thinking spot of just fantasizing about how I wish things were going to be different. Now, the next spot you might find yourself in is spot number 3. This is high practicality, but low magic. And I call this hustling to change. Well, I just got to work harder. well, I just got to post more on social media, or I just got to be more disciplined and like get out of my own head and stop thinking that way, you know. And I think that this has also a value because at least you're taking some action, right? At least you've identified some things you can do. You're not totally stuck. But the problem with hustling to change is it's kind of exhausting and it's not really sustainable for a long period of time because you end up feeling kind of burnt out. And you also, in hustling to change, can end up like kind of disconnected with your inner self where you're just pushing and working hard, but you don't really realize that things aren't working or you're not having a good time. So if you found yourself in this spot, you could put a 3 in the chat. This is what Spirit said to me yesterday. My spirit guide was like, I'm concerned that you're linking making more money with working harder. I was like, what? Of course you have to work harder to make more money. And we had this whole discussion about it. So the sweet spot I'd like us to think about here, I labeled finding the right switch to flip. This is a high practicality, but also high magic. We're not just working hard, but we're not just fantasizing about how things could be different. And we're definitely not stuck in passive acceptance. We're going to go inside of our inner selves and think, what would really help me to make this change? And what Spirit said to me after I got over my disbelief about how you don't have to work harder to make more money is my spirit guide was like, I really think it would be nice if you thought of it as play harder to make more money. He's like, you need to do something in your business that feels like fun and play to you. And I was like, all right, that might be the right switch to flip. So when I asked you to think about what was holding you back, that was partly why I asked you to think about that, because we're going to get rid of some of these inner obstacles to our change so that we can flip the right switch. So it's not hustling, but it's not fantastical la la land, and it's definitely not passive acceptance. So if you're with me on this and you'd like the idea of finding a nice switch to flip inside, flip to switch, sorry, a nice flip to switch inside. I have Mercury, right, in Pisces too at the moment. Let's just go inside and ask our inner selves for just a quick moment. You can close your eyes. Inner self, I honor and accept you. I appreciate you as a source of wisdom and insight. I just would like you to start thinking about what is the right switch to flip for me. Please give me insight about what I really would like to create and how I would enjoy and thrive creating that in my business, in my relationships, in my own inner world, my relationship with myself, my sense of worth. I'm just putting in a request for insight in this area. Anybody have any questions or thoughts or want to share about where you've been on this grid in the past week or so? If not, I'll move on.
There's one comment, I would say is a comment, and Kim wants to release putting hustle on a pedestal. I thought that was pretty cool. Letting go of that.
That's a great quote, Kim. Thank you so much. I feel like I want to post that on my social media. Release putting hustle on a pedestal. That's awesome. Yeah, that would be great. Okay, so if we look at the actual astrology here, we've got a couple of cool things going on besides the equinox, as if that weren't cool enough already. So the first thing we have is this trine, right? So Pluto down here is in Capricorn, and it's making a 120-degree angle up to this moon here in Virgo. Trines are always like supportive, easy energy. Pluto's a planet of transformation. Capricorn is a sign about building success for the long term. So that means we have real support here for actually changing, not just thinking about changing or wishing you could change or planning to change, but gasp, actually doing it. So we're going to take advantage of that. We also have a quintile, which is 144 degrees, with Saturn down here in Aquarius. Saturn, the plus side of Saturn is about letting go. Now, Saturn's a challenging planet, so you may find that you're experiencing grief and fear and some difficult emotions, especially regarding like authority figures or outside limitations. But this quintile is going to help us find creative ways to release whatever that block is that's holding us back. And then we also have this big conjunction with Mars, Venus, Juno down here, which is also in Aquarius. So Mars-Venus conjunctions are about reconciling opposites, like my spirit guide did with me, right? I'm like, well, I have to work harder to make more money. And my spirit guide was like, no, you have to play harder to make more money. And I was like, what? That's not what I was taught. I was taught that I had to hustle, right? To work hard, and you had to push yourself to work hard. And it wasn't good enough to be in the top 10% because you had to be in the top 2% because you push yourself even harder. So whatever it is that feels like, well, I can't do both, this is a great time to ask your inner self for insight for that. And this little thing here that looks like a star, like an asterisk on a cross, this is the asteroid Juno, which is about finding perfect partnership. So this is a great time if you're thinking about relationships to work on romantic partnerships, or we're going to use it in our ritual to become the perfect partners for ourselves here. So I titled this energy, what is my next season calling me to? And I said next season because that's the equinox, right? The equinox is the end of winter, the beginning of spring. If this is your spring, let's say you want to bloom, you want to grow, you want to blossom. What is that season going to look like? Maybe the last season was the season of putting hustle on a pedestal, or the season of thinking that if you could just think about things and you were just in your head, you could fix it, you know, but, or taking your worth from what you produce. That's last season. That's the winter. It's time for spring, man. It's time to get out there, experience the sunshine, enjoy the flowers, blossom, grow. What is that next season? What do you want that next season to look like for you? So let's just take a sec. And what is that first adjective that comes to your mind? Put it in the chat. First adjective that comes to your mind. I personally am looking for a lot more fun this next season. The last season of my life was about work, and I want this next season to be about fun, but yet I can still support my family by having fun, which is a total mind bender. But that's what I want my season to look like. What do you guys want the next season of your life to be like? And then we'll get into the ritual, I promise. That's next. What are we getting in the chat here for our next season, what it's going to be like?
In the chat, we have freedom, ease, looking to release, ease, relaxation, self-discovery. Oh, I like that one. And
Cool.
peaceful.
Yay. Oh, you guys are so good. Can you see how you're already building that energy, right? We're already building that energy. And if you're taking notes, write down, my next season is calling me to ease, peace, joy, fun, self-worth, self-discovery. Those are all amazing. I think you're welcome to use your own, or if you want to glom on to some of ours that are written here, that's awesome. Okay, so I called this ritual Turn Your Season. My original title was Your Inner Blocks Are Toast, but then I decided it wasn't equinoxy enough, so that's now my subtitle. And I will mention that this idea for this ritual came from a YouTube video by a guy named Jim Fortin, who kind of does transformational psychology. And it's called Burn Your Money Blocks. He was doing it at the new year, and I was like, oh, I want to adapt this. So you can go on YouTube and find this if you like. And I will also mention that I'm going to be talking more about this concept at a class I'm teaching for Awkwardly Zen on March 31st about lessons learned from working with spirit. It's called Your Subconscious Jar. And so if you're a member of the Awkwardly Zen meetup, or if you're not, you can check that out. It's free to join, and I'll be teaching much more in depth on this concept. Okay, so the first thing for this ritual is we're going to become our own perfect partner. We're going to harness this Juno and Aquarius. And ask yourself, and you don't have to do this all now. You can take screenshots, by the way, or if you want to email me afterwards, I'll give you my email and I'll email you a copy of the slides and you'll have the ritual for yourself. You've all identified these things you want, right? Like greater ease, greater peace, more joy, more self-worth, more self-discovery. So let's ask, what support do you need from yourself for that? So like, I want to have more fun. I need my inner me to stop criticizing me for not working hard enough and to find more creative solutions for how to make money while having fun, instead of feeling like I have to make money by pushing myself to do uncomfortable and unpleasant things. So think about, what inner support do you need? What change do you need from your inner self to start creating what you want to create, all those great dreams that you have? Right now, the next thing to do is to uncover your deep transformational block. because you are probably getting something out of the energy that is keeping you stuck in the place. So for example, let's say part of you is saying, no, you have to be productive in order to have a sense of self-worth, right? I've definitely thought that. So part of you is like, well, I hate being that way, and it's demeaning, and it's negative, and I don't like it, and I want to change. But if you've been this way for a long time, there's probably a reason. You're probably getting something out of it. And so you might be feeling like, well, I'm tough, and I'm hard on myself, and I'm strong, and that's why I feel good telling myself I have to be productive. Or part of you might be saying, well, by always being productive, I'm going to make sure I'm never going to starve to death. You know, I'll always have food on the table because I always have to be productive. Or, well, mom and dad said I always had to work super hard, and so I'm honoring them by keeping this energy. Like, what is that psychological stuff that is attached to this? And this is the heart of this ritual. So when you go do this for the full moon in a couple of days, really spend some time. We're harnessing our Pluto and Capricorn to go deep and figure out what is keeping me there. And then you want to write it down on a piece of paper. Now, this is my list, and this was my list for why there's part of me that's attached to not making enough money. And I realized that part of me was like, well, what if I make a lot of money and I become arrogant? You know, or what if I make a lot of money and then I don't need my parents' support anymore, and then I won't talk to them? Like, there were all these parts of me that were like, oh, but not having enough money is important psychologically. So take some time, figure out what is keeping you tied. You can do our exercise where you put your hand on your heart, you go inside and you ask, what am I getting out of being this way? Maybe you got praised as a kid by your teachers for being super hardworking, and part of you doesn't want to give up on that identity of I'm good because I'm working hard. All right. Does anybody have any questions about this idea that we have these deep psychological rewards from being stuck, and you have to uncover them and figure out what those are?
Nope, I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay. All right. So the next step in this ritual, so there's our block that we wrote down. Those are the blocks we're trying to let go of. Then the next step is to write down, what do I want to replace this with? Instead of saying, well, I need to make sure I don't make a lot of money so that I stay humble, what do I want instead? Instead of saying, well, I'm a good girl in school because I work so hard, maybe we want to say, well, I'm a good girl because I really enjoy my personality. You know, or instead of, I'm always in my head because it's safer to analyze things analytically because I got criticized as a kid for being, you know, too emotional. We can say, I want a balanced way of going through life that includes being in my head and using my brain sometimes, but also using my heart, and also using my emotions, and also using my intuition. You know, instead of being afraid of self-discovery and avoiding the inner you because you're not even sure what's in there, you can say, I want to have confidence that I can handle what happens if I step outside of my comfort zone. And then write that down. So we've written down what we want to let go of, what's keeping us attached to the old energy. And then we're going to write down the new thing that we want to replace it with. And by the way, I write these down on old receipts because I always save every tiny scrap of paper. So you'll see the receipt come up and you'll know, but this is the back of the receipt that I wrote this down. Okay. So does anybody have any questions so far about how this ritual is working?
Nope, not seeing any questions about the ritual.
Thank you for monitoring the chat for me, Valerie. I really appreciate it. Okay, now we are to the toast part, the toast portion of our ritual, because we are going to burn this block. So I rolled the block up. This is the stuff I was letting go of. I rolled it up and I tied it in a little knot and I just toasted it. This is some rosemary. This is a shell I use for my sacred burnings. You can see it took me like 4 matches to get through burning this tiny piece of paper. But I burned it with a little bit of herbs, and I just imagined the smoke taking this away. I don't need these attachments anymore. I don't need to keep getting self-worth from these old things. I don't need to keep being scared of my inner self, whatever it is, right? This is the moon in Virgo. We're problem solving this energy by taking away our block. And then the final step is to fold up the piece of paper. That's the back side of the receipt. fold up the piece of paper that has everything that you wanted and figure out what your open date is. You can see my open date here is March 4th, 2023. I gave myself a year because I had some pretty big dreams on that list of what I wrote down. And then what I did is I stuck it underneath my altar. This is my altar. And when I change my altar, I'll just move it. You can see it's kind of peeking out from underneath my offering bowl down here. Because every time I go to put energy and intention and love and divine connection into my altar, I want that to seep into this list of things that I'm creating instead. And then the final question is to ask yourself, how can I embody this energy this week? So like this week, what am I doing to create more fun in my business? This week, what am I doing to not be in my head so much? Doesn't have to be every day, doesn't have to be every moment of every hour, but make sure you're taking one concrete action. So like for me, I started posting more colorful, fun things on social media. And I started connecting more to my inner self so that I'm not pushing myself when I'm already exhausted. Instead of just thinking, oh, I got to push myself and finish this project, I'm taking more time to rest and walk away and do other things so that I'm not burning myself out. So you're going to ask, what step could I take to not be so afraid? What step could I take to send positive something to Ukraine, whether it's positive energy, prayers, a donation, you're posting on social media to send positive energy into the global situation instead of just letting it get me down and like letting the global situation send negative energy to me, right? How am I taking a step forward to make my own inner world and the outer world more positive? And then whatever your open date is, whenever that comes, open it up and ask yourself, how have I made progress toward these goals? And it could be, your open date might be next week. It doesn't have to be a year from now, depending on what you want to create, what feels right for you. But open it up and say, how am I creating this? What have I made progress towards? Congratulate yourself on your progress, and then figure out what your next step is for that. Okay, so you can see I've got my information here at the bottom. If you want to email me, I'll send you a copy of the slide, although you're obviously welcome to just take a screenshot if you like. And you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Spirit Said Style, or check out my website. And that's the end of my ritual. Thoughts, questions? How are you guys feeling about this?
I'm not seeing any hands going up or any specific questions. There was a comment back when you were talking about keeping track of all of your receipts and reusing pieces of paper. Someone strongly identified with that habit and asked, is that a Virgo trait?
So
the hoarding of small pieces of paper is how they worded it. Is that a Virgo trait?
Okay, well, I would say that the hoarding of small pieces of paper specifically is like not something that is common to all Virgos. However, Virgos are very detail oriented and they're very focused on like taking the actions that are meaningful to them. Virgos typically, Virgo energy has a lot of discipline to it when something's important. So I'm like super eco-sensitive and I hate the fact that we're constantly just reproducing trash all the time in like modern Western society. So since I care a lot about the environment, I hoard every scrap of everything and reuse as much as I can so that I'm not buying new stuff. I also have Scottish ancestors who were devoted to thrift. So I do things like take apart old sweaters and knit them into new things instead of going out and buying new yarn. So what I would say is if the hoarding of small pieces of paper has a meaning to you, especially if you think it's associated with healing or being positive for the planet or keeping track of details, then yes, that's probably a manifestation of those Virgo traits for sure. I do a lot of shipping. I sell clothing on eBay a lot, and I always keep the receipts to use as shipping labels because I just hate buying anything as much as I can avoid it. Great. Okay. Well, I'll take this down. Thank you guys so much for this ritual. I know it was complicated and detailed, but that's also very Virgo-y. Just have a lot of detail.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you, Robin.
Yep. Okay.
You're getting a lot of thank yous, and that was great in the chat. Oh, you can see the chat now. You're off screen share. All right.
Yeah, and I'll just put this. So my Instagram, my Facebook, and my LinkedIn are all at Spirit Said Style. Spirit Said Style.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right. Well, before I get into the activities that I'm going to share to help you connect with these energies, I wanted to pause and take a moment because I meant to do this earlier. And I wanted to speak specifically to what Virgo is, the Virgo constellation. Like we know Capricorn is a goat or a mergoat. Virgo, I found this interesting. Virgo is considered it's a female energy goddess, if you will, and considered to be a virgin. Now, there's at least 3 common Greek myths that are related to Virgo. You get to pick and choose whichever one resonates with you. But I thought I would share a couple because we're going to come back around to that word virgin. So the first one is the idea that Virgo is Persephone is represented by Virgo, the constellation Virgo. And the story of Persephone is that she is Demeter. I hope I'm saying these goddesses right. Demeter's daughter. Persephone was kidnapped and taken down to the underworld. And wait, back up. Persephone and Demeter existed when spring was all year round. Then Persephone was kidnapped and taken down to the underworld. Her mom was so mad and sad that spring ceased to exist. And then the underworld kidnapped her abductee decided to let her come back up for 6 months out of the year. And so thus we have the seasons. When she comes back up, we have 6 months of spring again. And when she's down in the underworld, it's when we have winter. So that's the story, which I'm just giving y'all that one story because I'm going to give you a second one, but I'm giving you that story because the Virgo virgin is linked, when you follow that mythology, is linked with abundance and fertility. Now, riddle me this. How is a virgin linked to fertility and abundance? Okay, just think about that for a minute. Second story, second Greek myth that she's kind of sort of associated with is, oh, I'm going to mess her name up. Arthea. In any case, the story is Pandora, also a goddess, was sent down to Earth when all of the gods and goddesses used to play around and live on Earth. Pandora opened the box. Many of you know the story of Pandora. She opens the box and lets loose grief and strife and famine and hate and lust and all of those things, which plague mankind. All of the gods slowly start returning to heaven because they don't want nothing to do with us earthlings dealing with all this bullshit down here. But Arthea, I think her name is Arthea. Hold on, because I have it pulled up. I think her name is Arthea. I might be saying her name wrong. Anyway, she loved humankind so much that she decides to stay behind and try her best to help humankind through what Pandora has fucked up for us. She was the last goddess to finally go up to heaven. And when she did, Zeus made her a constellation, the Virgo. Now, with that lovely story of her being a healer, trying to help heal mankind and keep mankind, that kind of links Virgo to those healing energies. But again, what does being a healer and caring for and being of service to others have to do with being a virgin? Nothing. She could have done that even if she was getting her groove on. So here's the thing. Linking Virgo to a virgin is a mistranslation. I'm going to call it that. A mistranslation. She was never meant to be a virgin. What was meant to be conveyed was purity and innocence, not necessarily a virgin. So I just want to put that out there because that's very important. For me, I find it very important because it makes more sense to link this goddess Virgo energy with fertility and service to others and kindness and healing and abundance. And none of that has anything to do with being a virgin. And you kind of get twisted and off center when you try to make that Virgo energy virginal. I hope that makes sense. I just feel it's very important to separate the two because it makes more sense when you do. And I also feel that there is There are other reasons at play in a patriarchal world that decided that she should be a virgin instead of letting her get her groove on and do what she needed to be and being this beautiful, powerful, sexual being, this powerful goddess, without trying to make her smaller and make her some kind of virgin. So anyway, that's my own little bone to pick with why they named her a virgin instead of just letting her be her. Robin.
So I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's completely true. And it comes down to the Greek word that was used,
Yep.
which could be translated as virgin, but could also just be translated as a virtuous young woman or a maiden.
Correct.
And I will mention at the risk, I really don't want to mess anybody up, but I think it's really important that this is the same word that is used to describe the Virgin Mary.
Yep.
And that the choice to translate this as virgin had to do with the beliefs of the church, who wanted to make sure that everybody knew that Jesus's birth was divine. And then that got translated over into the whole idea that being a virgin was just better in general. Also because young women in ancient Greece were very circumscribed. And so they were likely actually to be virgins because they literally couldn't leave the house except for weddings and funerals. So yeah, so thank you, Valerie, for saying that. It's super important. Yeah, so the thing is that young women actually are super fertile. And so like, it makes sense that if you want a goddess of fertility, you don't have a 65-year-old goddess of fertility. You have a maiden who has plenty of eggs and plenty of energy and plenty of
abundance and love and yes, service to others,
life, right? All that stuff.
Yes, yeah. Cool. Okay, I went down that whole rabbit hole with you all because that's going to be very important when we get to our guided visualization a little bit later, so that you have a picture of what this person, what this entity, what this Virgo energy is or might look like in your mind's eyes. But let's circle back to Robin gave you her rituals. And for me, I'm not going to give rituals. I'm going to give activities. And these activities are anything that you can incorporate into your day-to-day life with the specific intention of bringing Virgo energy in. So we already talked about Virgo being a young maiden, being in charge of fertility, being in charge of healing, related to the earth. She is one of the earth signs, so very grounded energy. So some things you might do to pull in those type of energies, and also linked to logical mind, planning, analytical thinking. Use a planner to plan out your week. Some of you are already doing that, and that's great. How about set the intention that as I use this planner, I'm going to make sure that I am pulling in extra Virgo energy as I do this thing that I'm already doing, because it's already great if you already have that habit or activity in your life. Clear your clutter. We talked about Virgo being very planned and very organized. So clear your clutter and use that Virgo energy to help you do so. Practice grounding meditations or techniques. Get out in nature, connect to the earth. Put your feet in direct contact with earth and connect to her energies. Organize your purse or wallet, which is a very material thing, usually connected to our finances. We know that material things of this world are earth energy, so that's going to pull in that Virgo earth energy. And when you clean out your purse or your wallet, you are telling the universe and making space to allow for more abundance, also asking for that Virgo abundant and fertility energy to come in and fill your wallet or purse up with abundance, but you got to clear the way for it first. Okay, organize your closet. I'm going to hone in on those who have Virgo sun signs, because if you are a Virgo sun sign, that puts Virgo in your first house. This is your house of self and self-image. So for you specifically, Virgo sun signs, organizing your closet is a great way to pull in this Virgoian energy, because you're dealing with a facet or an area of your life that falls right in your first house, your self-image, how you clothe yourself, how you present yourself to others. So it's a perfect opportunity to get your wardrobe or anything else related to self-image, your makeup, counter, your shoes, whatever, get all of those things organized by pulling in that Virgo energy to help you not only with organizing, but also with specifically, if you are a Virgo sun sign, with your first house of self-image. Organize your finances and bills. We talked about that a little bit when we talked about organizing your purse or wallet. Start a new health routine, because Virgo deals with the 6th house of health and healing. Eat plant-based foods to connect with Earth. This is something you can do just during maybe full moon night dinner or anytime as you want to pull in these Virgo energies. Meditate in nature or with nature scenes or sounds playing in the background if you're unable to physically get into nature. Listen to healing solfeggio tones. So solfeggio, which is Solfeggio, which I highly suggest you search on YouTube. Solfeggio tones or frequencies refer to specific tones of the sound that help with and promote various aspects of body and mind health. So again, we're linking health and healing back to Virgo, and listening to these tones are a perfect way to do that. There's some sites that list that there are 8 base tones and some sites that list there are 12. Doesn't matter. I'm going to give you 2 that I picked out that are very specific to Virgo energy. The first one is going to help with facilitating change and undoing situations. So change, we know Virgo is a mutable sign. That is very good with being flexible and changing. Undoing situations, I say is the same thing as letting go, using this time to this full moon to let go of things. And that frequency is 417 hertz. The other one, which is for, now again, there are 12. I'm picking out the 2 that relate to Virgo energies. The other one is for miracles and transformations. Again, Virgo is about transformation and change because it's a mutable sign, transformations and DNA repair. So this frequency, 528 hertz, is for miracles, transformations, and DNA repair. So I linked the DNA repair to our health and wellness. So those are the 2 tones I recommend that you listen to. All of these things on this list of activities are things that you can do during the full moon or even the couple of days or week after to really pull in and capitalize on those Virgo energies, and on the full moon, helping you to let go of and release what's not serving you. Just a note, there was a lot of things talking about organizing and getting into the organizing energies of Virgo. Any organizing that you do will benefit the most from this full moon Virgo energy if you not only organize, but if you also throw out or let go of what you no longer need. This allows the universe to fill that space back up with what is best suited for you and your spiritual journey at this time. So that was my little list of activities. Were there any questions or comments about that? Sonia saying eating plant-based food helps with stomach issues. Yes. Yeah. A lot of those tips are good for all of the signs. So for all of us, we can definitely benefit by taking some of those activities to heart, especially during this Virgo full moon, where they will be magnified and amped up for us. Okay. A lot of great things going on in the chat over there. Awesome. Okay. Still got some people hanging with us till the end. I love it. So this is where we're going to move into our meditation. And this final meditation is going to help us really pull in these energies and find ways, hopefully some insights on what we need to let go of for this upcoming lunar cycle and how these energies can benefit us. No worries, Ella, we're just getting ready to do a meditation, so you are perfectly on time. I guess the divine decided that this would be the perfect time for you to join us, so we're happy you're here. All right. Going to make sure everyone is muted. Perfect. Okay, we're going to start by taking a deep breath and getting comfortable in your surroundings. Close your eyes and gently focus your attention to where you are presently seated. Continue breathing deeply and slowly. And during this visualization, if your mind should wander, that's okay. Just see where your mind takes you. If you'd like to bring yourself back to the visualization, you can start by concentrating slowly on your breathing, bringing yourself back to a center start point. Continue breathing deeply and relaxing, releasing any stress you're holding in your body. releasing any thoughts of stress, any thoughts of the future, any regrets of the past. Let that all go and focus on your present moment. Now, in your mind's eye, I want you to visualize a beautiful scene out in nature, somewhere surrounded by lots of trees. And through the trees, you see a small path start to appear. Take a deep breath, relax even deeper, and begin walking down that path through the forest, through the trees, taking notice of nature around you. What do you hear? How does the weather feel? Are there any smells that you are enjoying? Flowers, smell of the trees, the forest, the grass. And finally, what are you seeing? Beautiful sunlight dancing through the leaves at the top of the trees, warming your skin as you walk along this path deeper into the forest, relaxing even deeper. Finally, the path leads you to a small opening between the trees. It's beautiful, lush green grass. You decide to walk barefoot into this opening, and you feel the soft, velvety grass beneath your feet. You feel the energy of Mother Earth beneath your feet, welcoming you, comforting you, connecting you. Continue walking until you're in the center of this small opening, feeling very connected to Mother Nature, to the earth, to all that is around you. Just a little ways away in one of the trees, you hear a small bird, and you let your eyes follow the sound until you find the bird sitting on one of the branches. It's a very beautiful bird. As you're looking at the bird, it looks back at you and decides to fly over to you. It lands right near you. And as you look down, you can see that in one of its feet, this bird is carrying a small scroll of paper. A message meant just for you, waiting for you before you even arrived. You know that this message is coming from the divine. Divine is using Mother Nature, Earth, and her creatures herself to send this message to you. You thank this beautiful bird, this beautiful winged creature, and you take the tiny scroll. On the scroll is written what you need to let go of. Open up that scroll and read the message that the divine has sent you today as to what you need to let go of. As you contemplate this message and what it means to you, take a moment to envision what your life will be like after you have let go of this thing. As you think about the future without this, it feels lighter, feels more promising, feels like you can finally move forward without being hindered by this thing. This message from the divine has clued you into what you need to let go of. But as you stand in this beautiful scene in nature, you still question how. How do I let go? Just as you're asking this question, you see a beautiful maiden emerge from between the trees and begin to walk towards you. Very young, innocent, beautiful smile on her face. She comes and stands before you and introduces herself as Virgo and tells you that she has been sent to take with her whatever it is that you want to let go of. You don't need to worry about the how. You only need to decide in this moment that you do indeed want to let go of it and to turn it over to this beautiful maiden so that she can take it away. Take a moment to decide if you're ready to let go. Take a moment to speak with Virgo, to listen to see if she has any other messages for you. You have decided that now is the time, with the help of the divine and with the help of this maiden, that you are ready to let go so that you can move forward with your life. You unburden yourself from this thing. You hand it to Virgo. You also hand her the scroll. You don't need any remembrance or any ties to this thing. You rid yourself of this once and for all. And Virgo is more than happy and delighted to take this. She takes this from you and begins to retreat and walk back through into the forest. And you feel a lightness about you. The further that energy that you handed to Virgo gets away from you, the lighter you feel. The more lifted up you feel. The more supported by the divine. And the more enhanced your connection to Earth becomes once you've unburdened yourself. Take a deep moment of gratitude in this beautiful clearing as you thank the divine for this opportunity to finally let go of and release yourself from the burden of the energy that no longer serves you. Now it's time for you to leave this beautiful place in nature and slowly return back to your physical self, knowing that everything is energy. And even though this was just a visualization, you still did some very important energy work and released the energies that no longer served you. You only need to know that they are gone, that they are being handled by the divine. Take a deep breath and slowly come back to your physical space, to this physical room, to this gathering. Open your eyes when you're ready. And hopefully you all energetically and truly left something behind. And as human nature has it, we tend to want to pick those up once we return back to our real physical world. Don't do it. Leave it behind. Let the divine work its magic on it. Take it away. And if you need to repeat this meditation, it will be in the recording, so you can repeat it as many times as necessary until you feel that you have truly left that energy behind. Okay, well, that is what I have for today. Thank you. Thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed that meditation. I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple of things onto the meditation and let you know that you can reach Robin Poole at spiritsaid.com. That is her website. You can find more information on me at goddesswithanattitude.com. You can find more moon events like this on our meetup.com event page, which is Tarot Unicorns with an S and Coffee. Just search Tarot Unicorns and Coffee on Meetup to find all of our upcoming events. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this recording, but not the event.